In this video, I'm going to be talking about knight's pawn and rook's pawn against a rook's pawn. In this case, there's no knight or rook. It's just I'm referencing pawns in a knight and rook file for either side. In this sort of position, we will begin with black is to move. Now with black to move, some people might think the most obvious movement is to maybe move the king more inwards to move it closer to his pawn. But that wastes a valuable stage. Simply, white can counteract that with his own move. Now if black were to try to check him, he can simply block it. It prevents black from moving upwards, and by simply moving this side, we can move our pawn up. By moving our pawn up, black has really no other options besides simply letting his own pawn be taken and having him lost his own advantage. Therefore, in the first place, we should move our pawn down for him to at least gain some kind of meaningful advantage, but only one step forward. Because simply too many steps forward allows his pawn to get in territory of white, which allows white to take his pawn. So she only move one step ahead of time. By moving one step ahead of time, what should be white's next move? If white's next move is going to be this, it's going to be moving the pawn to g2. Sorry, to g3, by corrections. When you move this pawn to g3, black has really no option to move down. Black has no option to only move side to side. Now his next best option is maybe move closer to his pawn. But if he moves closer to his pawn, white can actually counteract that by moving up. But by moving up, how does that do anything? It seems as though we've gone farther away from our own pawns, and black might take advantage of that by simply moving down. Now if white were to actually move down, then we can move our pawns up. Now in this case, these two squares are blocked, and this square is also blocked too. Now with all squares blocked, black doesn't necessarily want to give up his advantage of simply being near these white pawns, so he actually might move his pawn one step down. When he's one step down, well then white can do what? Well, white has a very limited amount of options now. White can do simply check him. But actually might be a disadvantage for him, because black can move further. And by moving further, it seems as though white has lost all hope, as both his pawns are being threatened by black himself. White's next best move is actually to move upwards, by actually going around black's king. By moving around black's king, it allows him to, in some ways, to make a reversal movement to get closer to black's own pawn, while at the same time allowing black to take one of his pawn, allow him also to gain key access to this pawn right over here later on. So black's next motion might be to take the pawn, to reduce white's advantage of having another pawn. But if he takes that pawn, he allows white to move back over. If white moves right over here, then he not only has control over his own pawn, he has all control over his black pawn, and black is simply too far away and is unable to come back to protect his black pawn. Therefore, black's next best movement is to try and move around right and hopefully catch up in time into going to this aisle to block this white pawn from promotion. So let's do that. White takes this pawn. Black may try moving up, but even though black tries moving up, it's a lost case for him. Because if white just moves diagonally up, he's able to control the next free square for his pawn to promote upon. Therefore, black's only hope is to try to get to the very last square. But we all know in reality at this point that black has no way to make it to the last square. And though he tries, white will simply just keep moving up, move his pawn. And even though black can maybe at last may seem as though he's able to get in, he cannot get in, and he doesn't have enough time to stop white from promoting. And thus, white is in a position to checkmate. Happy checkmating. In this position, you should always maintain at least one pawn on a second file. By at least maintaining one pawn on a second file for white, he's able to at least allow one pawn to remain safely behind, while using the other pawn to distract the other pawn and be able to take it later on, thus reducing the black's advantage of having a one pawn. For black, his best option is to try to keep white as far back as possible and try to push him closer to his own pawn. If he pushes him closer to his own pawn, it gives limited with space for white to move on. But in this case, white was able to maintain his line of defense and actually able to move up. By moving up, he's able to capture further key squares and at the end capture black's own pawn. Now it's white to move. Now white should try moving up one of his pawns, because moving up his pawn allows him to promote much quicker and much easier. But which pawn to move? The pawn in G rank or H rank, or knight's pawn or the rook's pawn? He should try promoting his rook's pawn first, or at least just try moving up first. Because if he moves the knight's pawn up, it prevents him from moving over to the H file, which is the most crucial file to allow his rook pawn to promote. If he moves up his G pawn, it kind of prevents him from moving side to side to the most important crucial squares, which is right over here in the future. Therefore, he should always move his H file rook pawn first. But if he moves his h5 pawn first, black may feel threatened by that, and move his king over. He might not move his pawn, but move his king, because his king is the most strongest piece at his point, as it can provide the most amount of protection in this position. White's next best counter movement is simply move his king over to this position. Why? Well, black can actually move down here in the next move. And if he moves down here, white cannot move over and protect this pawn directly. And white has to give up some of his position down here to allow black to at least not take his pawn. But by moving back down, it gets him a disadvantage of the fact that he simply cannot move up and help his pawn promote. White's king's movement should always try and move upwards, so at least he can protect future squares for his pawn to promote. Therefore, his best move is to move sideways to the right. Now, if he moves sideways to the right, Black's next reaction movement is simply not to give up his own position right up here. Black's king doesn't want to move. He wants to prevent both white king and pawn from moving upwards, potentially promote. So he might move his pawn down. Well, if he moves his pawn down, what should he do? He doesn't want to get too close to white, so he only moves one step forward. Now, if he moves one step forward, what's white's best counter-reaction movement? White realizes that he can potentially check him. Therefore, white might simply move out. If white moves out, black may try to take advantage of this situation by simply moving down here. But if he moves down here, then he's kind of stuck. He's kind of isolated himself, basically. And simply, white can simply use his pawn to protect him. Black cannot move down here. Black cannot move down here. He's blocked his own pawn. Therefore, his only best option is to move back, which is a wasted movement. So black may not play this movement. Black may not at all move this position. Black doesn't necessarily want to move his own pawn down. Because if he moves his own pawn down, we can simply move our pawn up. When we move our pawn up, we force him to take it. Because the reason why is this way. Black may try and move behind it. But black moves right behind it, we can move our king up. And that gives us valuable space for white at least, to at least capture a few more squares that allow his pawn to promote, which is disadvantageous for black in this case. So he doesn't want to move his pawn down. Now in this position, let's begin again. What's black's best move? Just move side to side in front of the king and prevent him from making any further steps upwards. Now, from this position, white can finally move his pawn up. If white moves his pawn up in this case, black's pawn next move, if he moves down, will be forced to take on these pawns, which is a disadvantageous move for him. So black's best movement is to maybe simply move to the side. But why to this side specifically? Well, if he moves to this side, he gets checked, he gets blocked, and simply his pawn is stuck. Well, let's play it out. Let's say if we actually move our pawn right here, and he moves right here, let's say we just move our pawn right here. If we move our pawn right here, he's forced to move over. Now, if he moves over right there, what can we do next? We can simply move out. But that might be seem strange in some ways. Why is white moving away from his pawn? Didn't you just say that white should always maintain at least a close distance between his pawn? Well, in this case, it actually provides to be a bit of a controversial for him. Sure, he may try and move down, but if he moves down right here, what can white do next? White just simply moves back down and protects his pawn. And that is sort of a wasted move for black, as he can take neither pawn and not do much. So therefore, let's not waste our movement here. Black's maybe only movement is simply move right from white's king, to prevent him from moving upwards and gaining any meaningful square. But if he chooses to do that, what can white do in this position? White's only movement in this case is to move down. But white moves down, then black may move down with him. But then black chooses to move to the side to maintain at least some closeness with his own pawn. White might keep simply moving down. So this position starts becoming a little bit of a drawn-out position. No longer is it an easy position for white to win in. But if black were to take the pawn in this case, and move his own pawn down, he will lose his own pawn. In some ways, black is in a losing position. Sure, this position can get played out. But as long as white is remain within a relatively close with his pawn, black realizes that he's at a disadvantage. Because if white keeps on protecting his pawn, and black has no way of taking it, then therefore he simply has a possibility of losing. Now let's say in this position that white has to do something. At least someone has to do something. White might try moving up here. Now if white moves back up here, he gets a very key advantageous stroke. Because by moving up here, he at least gains some upward meaningful growth. Black cannot move here, here, or here. Nor he can move here. So he's forced to move up. But if black's forced to move up, white gains a key advantage. He's close to his pawn, he can draw a few key squares right over here. Now with him controlling a few key squares right over here, Black might try to control his own pawn and try to save it. But even though he tries to save it, white still has the ability to go upwards. Because black has tried to at least protect his pawn and give up some space for white to move upwards, which is relatively dangerous for him. Now that white has moved upwards, black might try moving his pawn down. But we remember that if black tries to move his pawn down in this position, white may take it, but white doesn't have to. White can actually block him. In this position, if white is blocking black, black's pawn has no more ability to move down. So of course, black's king might simply move down and try to do something about it. White actually should try moving away and try moving upwards. If white moves in this position, black may simply try to block him upwards. But if black would actually move downwards to try at least take this bottom pawn right here, it gives him some sort of a disadvantage. By moving down, white can simply try moving over. Because when white moves over, he prevents these three squares, and in some ways black is kind of stuck. If he keeps moving down, white has the advantage. And when he's in this sort of position, he's able to take black's pawn and safely help promote one of his pawn to become a queen. Even though black were to take this pawn right here, black's in a losing position. So therefore, as long as you keep closely playing this game, although I'm not going to show you necessarily a checkmate situation, in some ways, by allowing yourself your king to at least try moving upwards, but maintain at least a relative safe distance, and have each pawn support each other, this position should always be a win for you. Happy checkmating.